baby. The pick is in. Yes, sir. Detroit. Yet another Brad Holmes masterclass. Absolutely killed it. Traded up like 50 different times. Loved each and every one of them. It was a blast. Julius, now I got to ask you. I'm just going to dive right into this because we only got a couple minutes before our guy Joey Harrington joins the show. So real quick, we're going to talk a little draft for a couple minutes here. But Julius, being in Germany, were you awake for this pick or what? What was going on? Because the pick was made. You actually might have been getting up for work, honestly.
Yeah. The pick was made at like 4:30 in the morning, my time. And I did wake up for the draft at 2 a.m. my time over here in Germany. And I did watch all the way up to that Lions pick. I watched all the way up to the Cowboys pick when they traded it to the Lions.
And you saw that trade up and we're like, hell yeah, baby.
Oh, yeah. I was like, what? What? Who are they going to pick? Who are they going to pick? And I saw Arnold still on the board. I'm like, that's the guy. I think everybody knew, like number one cornerback on a lot of boards is standing right there for the Lions. And the Brad Holmes did what he's done many times before. He made the aggressive trade up to get his guy, and I loved it.
Yeah, man, that's the best part. He got his guy. And when Brad Holmes is getting his guy, and it's not just, this was a guy that fell to us or, some comment like that, or he actively traded up a third-round pick, nothing, small like sixth or seventh round. Third round's decent capital. And ironically, we used another third rounder in Carlton Davis. So maybe that's just our MO going forward. Use a third round and get a cornerback. But yeah, Terrion Arnold, that addition was huge. Just the whole draft aspect, I think it was like first 15 picks were all offensive linemen or offensive positions. So was awesome to see Terrion slide down in the draft. But without further ado, we got Joey Harrington joining the podcast. Joey, what's going on, man? Sorry to surprise you. I popped you on real quick.
Not a problem.
Thanks for hopping on, man. Happy to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Joey, before we get into this thing, let's just talk about the Harrington Family Foundation. I know you're big in it. I know there's some stuff going on. You got some shoes raffling off. So just take us through what's going on with the Harrington Foundation right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so we are doing our annual spring fundraiser called Sneakers for Scholarships. If you're a sneakerhead, you know the name Tinker Hatfield. If you're not a sneakerhead, well, you know what? Everybody likes to help out the kids, right? So Tinker Hatfield is a local Northeast Portland guy, designed the Jordans 3 through 15, I think is what he's credited with. But is a great friend of the foundation and designed 7 pair of Harrington Family Foundation Jordan 1s. It's actually the only pair, is what he says, because like a different guy, I'm getting into like sneaker lore now, Peter Moore designed Jordan 1 and 2. And so Tinker, this is the first time he ever did a Jordan 1, he said. I don't know whether that's true, but you roll with it. But he designed this 7 pair that, it's a scarcity thing. It's a rarity thing. It's a type of holy grail type of sneakers. We combine that with the Jordan 1 Chicago Off-Whites, and we're raffling them off for our Sneakers for Scholarships. We give 4-year college scholarships to graduating high school seniors based on community leadership and financial need. So, we're not basing it on grades. We're not basing it on test scores. We're basing it on what have you done for your community? How have you invested in your neighborhood? How have you made things better? So to be able to use some incredibly cool sneakers to raise money for students is it's a pretty fun deal.
Yeah, that's awesome. See, there's definitely tons of kids out there that, they might not think to reach out to, charities like you would think, I'm not the smartest, I'm not going to get this scholarship. But, like you were saying, if you make an impact on your community and you're helping out and you're, making a point to, do something bigger than, what's going on, then you absolutely qualify. So, yeah, that's totally awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's, I don't know. I've always been somebody who, and maybe idealistically, maybe naive, believes that, investing in the people around you, investing in your community is gonna in the long run lead to, lead to better things. So to be able to find students who think similarly and are willing to get their hands dirty, it's a pretty cool deal.
It's awesome. Awesome to hear. All right. I'm going to start out with the first question that kind of pertains to what's been going on, and that's the NFL draft. Not so much this NFL draft, but Joey, I am so curious about your NFL draft.
Oh,
You were the number 3 overall pick. What was it like to get that phone call, have all your friends and family around you, just like one of the best moments of your life, surrounded by friends and family? Kind of take me through that, and then also take me through what happens after that phone call. After you hang up, do you go party, or is it kind of just everyone goes their separate ways, or what?
Okay, do you want? I'll give you this. I'll give you the stock answer first. What was it like to get the phone call? It was life changing. I mean, it really was. I mean, there's no other way to put that. I remember standing there with my mom, and we were both kind of speechless after it had all kind of settled down. And she just looked at me and she's like, you just hit the lottery, right? Like it's just like, this is one of those like life-changing moments. My experience was a little bit different. So I got invited to go back to the draft back in New York, but they had like 8 top tables. So they said, you and your agent, and then you can bring 6 people. I was like, I'm from an Irish Catholic family. Like, there's no way I'm only bringing 6 people. So I said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm gonna stay at home, and I'm gonna go over to my grandma and grandpa's house, where literally we probably had like 50 plus people, friends, family, and then all the, remember this was back almost 25 years ago. All the TV satellite trucks parked out on the curb. What was the actual experience like? I was sitting on the couch. I knew that David Carr was going number 1 to Houston. I likely knew that Julius Peppers was going number 2 to Carolina. And then from that point forward, there was like 3 until 15, a couple teams that needed quarterbacks. My phone rang, or I should say my agent's phone rang, and he picked it up. And oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the last name. Bill. God, he used to be in the front office for the Lions, and he had a brother. We call him Mr. Bill. Anyway, he had a brother in the front office with the Cardinals. And so my agent picks it up and he says, it's Mr. Bill from the Cardinals. And so I, answer the phone. Hello, how are you? Good to talk to you. Talk for about 30 seconds. And he says, well, you ready to go? I was like, well, ready to go where? He says, we're about to pick you. And I said, with all due respect, sir, but it's not your pick. And he says, who the hell do you think you're talking to? I said, Mr. Bill from the Cardinals. He's like, no, this is Mr. Bill from the Lions. I was like, and I looked at my agent. I was like, it's the Lions, not the Cardinals. He was like, oh, yeah. Bam, on the TV with the 3rd pick, the Detroit Lions select Joey Harrington from University of Oregon. He mispronounced Oregon. Anyway, so it was kind of a big surprise when it actually happened, because I thought I was talking to a different team. What happens afterwards? Most of the time, all those guys in New York hopped on a jet and ended up doing a press conference at their team that afternoon. If I was flying from Oregon back to Detroit, there weren't a whole lot of flights going, nonstop that day. So I had a ticket the next morning, and we didn't know how long it was going to be till I got drafted. It happened to be literally 15 minutes into it. So I had all the rest of the day, and at about 2:00, my cousins, my brother, my cousins and uncles were kind of sitting around. It's like, well, what do you want to do? And someone said, well, we could go to Rose City. I was like, all right, cool. So we picked up a 6-pack and went over to Rose City Golf Course and played 9 holes. So it was like one of those days where it was like, on one hand, like my life just changed, like the most dramatic change you could possibly imagine. And then after lunch, we went and did the same thing that we always did, right? Just go down to Rose City Golf Course and knock it around in the back 9. So, and just having a beer with my family. So yeah, that was my draft experience. Probably a little different.
That sounds pretty cool. No matter what you shot on that 9, you used probably the best round of your life.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. I was 2 under that day. I'd never done it before, and I don't think I've ever done it since.
Do you think the draft process is different for the new guys, Joey?
Hold on. Was it Bill Polian? Was he with the Detroit Lions?
He was executive with the Lions for a while, yeah.
There you go. That was Bill Polian. He had a brother who worked for the Cardinals. Anyway, you asked a question. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just wondering, like, do you think that that draft process you went through is different nowadays for the newer guys?
It's 100% different. Starting at the combine was literally, you just kind of walk down into, you have all these interviews with teams, and you just kind of walk down to the hotel of a lobby, and someone would grab you and it's like, pull you into a conference room, and you'd meet with the Bears. Then someone would, pull you in, you'd go meet with the Chargers. A lot of that stuff is scripted now. All the workout stuff. I'm not kidding when I say, they brought us down at like 6:30 in the morning into the basement, or like the loading docks of the, what was the RCA Dome there in India? Was that what it used to be? And they gave us a brown bag with an apple, like an old, deli sandwich, and a bag of Lay's potato chips. And then I was like, all right, go run and go throw. Like, it was, I won't call it the dark ages, but compared to, the sponsorship, the televised combine, everything is, taken care of. Some guys chose not to throw, some guys chose not to do certain workouts, but very rarely did you have guys really taking ownership of their journey like that, right? Most guys thought like, hey, this is my opportunity to be on a stage, to show these executives, these team owners, these team GMs what I can do. The draft itself now, we didn't need him anyway.
Second and third overall picks here.
What's that?
Oh no, I was saying just the second and third overall picks left. My first name's Julius, like Peppers.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the draft itself. No, I like Adam. Why would you say that about him, Julius? Oh, hey, what's up? Good to see you back.
You're a funny guy, Joey.
Yeah, exactly. The draft itself now is an absolute. It's a marathon, right? It's a multi-day televised marathon. That they've turned into a TV and in-person spectacle. Like, I think the biggest difference between then and now is the amount of money that's involved, and the way that people have, or I should say, the amount of interest, which has then encouraged people to monetize every aspect of it, right? It's why the combine is shown live on television. It's why they turned the first round of the draft into a red carpet event. Like, I was sitting there and watching it with actually my oldest son and my wife, and I was like, this is different. But to each their own, and things move along.
Do you think it's too much? That's a question that's been going around a lot.
Here's the answer. I say yes, not because I want to be a crotchety old get off my lawn kind of old dude, but because I want to make sure, or there is a very big difference. How do I've started? This is a massive transition in a lot of these guys' lives. Massive transition. I want to see as many of them be as successful as they possibly can, right? And at the end, it's up to them, right? It's up to them to know, that it's going to be a spectacle, to know that it's going to be this ridiculous event, and handle it accordingly. I I just hope that it's not putting unrealistic or unfair expectations on some of these guys. You know, that being said, they're walking into a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? And most of them, you know, let's not pretend like they haven't been getting paid like a professional, you know, for the last few years in college. So, you know, it's just different. I happen to like sport with less spectacle. You know, I'd rather watch a football game without all the commercials. You know, I hated TV timeouts when I was playing because you just stood there. It's like twiddling your thumbs on, you know, on the sideline and getting cold. You know, there's something about football where it's truly just you against me. Strap your pot on. I'm going to hit you in the face. You're going to hit me in the face. And whoever gets up and does it longest and does it the best wins, right? And I don't necessarily associate that with red carpets and you know, so, but I can understand how it transitions to that, right? That's what people want now. So you know what? Give the people what they want. And I'll just kind of keep my opinions to myself and try and watch the sport that I love.
Very cool. Yeah, definitely. So now, Joey, this question's kind of an interesting one. Back in your day, little Joey Harrington from like 8th grade to high school or whenever, when was that age moment that you realized, you know what, I got this. I think I'm going pro, man. Like, I got this.
So there I guess there's two. Did I realize that I could be a professional football player? I was a junior in college. Like that was never my focus. And honestly, and I don't say it, you know, this is such a cliche thing, but the percentage of guys that end up playing professional football, professional sports for any, you know, for in any sport is so minuscule that it was never really a realistic thought in my mind. Now, I wanted to be, you know, you grow up like idolizing the players that you're closest to, right? That you have access to. We didn't have a professional football team in Portland. But we watched the Oregon Ducks, right? And I watched the Oregon Ducks play in the Rose Bowl against Kajana Carter and Penn State. And that was it. Like Big Ten, Pac-10, like I wanted to play in Pasadena. That was my goal. You know, some guys say, I want to be an NFL player. I want to be an NFL player. For me, it was, I want to play in the Rose Bowl. I want to play in the Rose Bowl. I want to play in the Rose Bowl. Because of the way I worked for that, the NFL became an opportunity, right? That's how my journey went, which is, which is different than a lot of other guys. But it really wasn't until like after my junior year where I was kind of doing it was when the billboard went up in New York City. They put up a 10-story billboard for my Heisman campaign across from Madison Square Garden, and we were kind of bopping through the East Coast media tour, and I was with Mel Kiper back, I think, in Baltimore, and someone asked him, well, where do you think Joey's going to go? If he left right now, where would he go in the draft? I was like, if I left where? Like, where am I going? And he's like, oh, I probably got Joey as like a 4th or 5th round pick. I was like, that was the moment where I was like, man, like this could be a realistic possibility. And then with all the success that we had, you know, my senior year, the way I played, I obviously worked myself into the first round and, then went and played 9 holes, the back 9 at Rose City with a 6-pack of beer, and the rest is history, right?
It's a story. That's awesome. Because you often get, tons of guys that their main goal, I want to make it to the NFL, I want to make it to the NFL. But sometimes, there's, I guess, like paths to the ultimate outcome different ways. You could try to achieve something smaller, and then that will lead to something twice as big, kind of what you did. So it's a cool story.
The interesting thing, though, like if you, and obviously everybody's journey is different. I think that mine was, if you look back on it, I should say it like this. You ask Tom Brady, he was always finding some motivation, finding some way to come up with somebody who slighted him, right? How could I use this as motivation? How could I, to truly become the best player? Like his goal, I want to be the best person to ever play the game of football, right? My goal was to play in the Rose Bowl, right? And it was a really interesting shift when I got into the NFL and realizing, like we kind of talked about the spectacle that it's become, like this isn't real life. This is not, most people don't live like this. Most people don't live in this world of fancy cars and, and free meals and people people rolling out the red carpet. Like this is just different. And so I always knew that there was going to be a time when not just I went back to that, but I wanted to go back to that. Right. And it's interesting to look back and say, like, I wonder if that, had an effect on the trajectory of my career, right? The acknowledgement that, hey, at some point this is going to end. And I want to make sure that, I'm taking care, I've done things the right way. I've set myself up for what I'm going to do in the future. I know that, I didn't want to cut myself off from friends and family back home. I still wanted to be able to come back home and just like slip back in the way that things always used to be. There's a trade-off. There's a trade-off when you become the very best football player in the history of the world. A lot of those relationships go away. And it's interesting now to look back and, where I am now as a father and, trying to raise my kids a certain way, to think about my perspective at that time and how it may have had an influence on the trajectory of my career. But that's, that's a whole nother podcast. That's like a psych 101 class.
Awesome. I guess we can get into moving to this year's draft with the Lions. I just want to know, Joey, your overall thoughts on the Lions draft, specifically when it comes to what they did at cornerback. They doubled down. They traded up for Arnold in the first round, and then they took Rakeshaw in the second round. What is your analysis on all that for the Lions this year?
Loved it. Because I don't think there's anybody who would have said, I should phrase it this way. Detroit's just fine on offense. Detroit is just fine on offense. They've got a future Hall of Famer on the offensisive line. They got a quarterback who did something that none of us could have done. Not me, not Dan Orlovsky, not John Kitna, not Matthew Stafford, not Rodney Peete, not Charlie Batch, not Scott Mitchell. None of us had done what Jared Goff did this year, right? They've got a wide receiver core that is absolutely just rock solid. They've got young talent at running back. They got young talent at tight end. Like their need was on defense, and specifically at corner, right? If you have a lockdown corner in the NFL, oh my God, like it changes. It's a game changer. So to have the luxury of having all of those positions so well taken care of, to be able to say, not just with our first pick, but also with our second, we're going to try and find that guy. And to get guys, like that's the thing that I love about the Lions front office right now. And I heard Dan Campbell talking, it must have been a week or two ago. It's like, we're not necessarily going to take the most talented guy. We're at a place where we're going to take guys that are unbelievably talented that fit our culture, right? That are fits for who we are and what we do, right? We're going to draft ankle biters, and even if one of those corners turns out to be an ankle biter, like that's going to be a hell of a pickup for the Lions, because with the emergence of Aiden Hutchinson, you can always have more defensive linemen, right? Nobody has ever said, yeah, I'm just too deep on the defensive line. You can always have more D linemen, but there are only a handful of teams that say I have a true lockdown corner. And if you found one of those guys in the first 2 rounds this year, I'd say you're on a hell of a trajectory right now. I loved it.
Here, got the Joey Harrington stamp of approval. Always like that. Yeah, I agree with you. Having a cornerback, you probably know best where, if your defense is out there, Dre Blyott maybe makes an interception or something, or kind of just turns the game around because, cornerbacks, they're in the position of, getting interceptions, making a play that could flip, the momentum at any moment. So to have a number one DB, yeah, I definitely could see it.
Well, the thing is, like, people think about the Brett Favre years in Green Bay, right? I would argue that it was the defense, and specifically Mike McKenzie and Al Harris, who had just as much influence on the success of that team, right? I will never forget having to game plan. I could count on one hand the number of guys that we game planned around. Charles Woodson, Chris McAllister, and Mike McKenzie in Green Bay, right? To have that guy who's absolute lockdown, but then to have the luxury of, all right, I'm staying away from Mike McKenzie. I'm going to go to the other side, and oops, it's Al Harris. Like that was the 1-2 punch, right? DBs, you can never have too many great corners, especially with the way the league is going right now. It is a pass-happy, receiver-favoring, they've altered the rules to protect quarterbacks. It is everything you can possibly do to make sure that you're going to be throwing for a bunch of yards and scored a bunch of points. If you get corners, you're a step ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Defense wins championships. You hear so many coaches preach that. And yeah, like exactly what you're saying. The offensive pass game has just skyrocketed these last, 5-6 years to a point where if you don't have a lockdown corner or if your secondary is weak, as we kind of saw Lions fans, it's tough to win games, and it could make, winning games a little stressful. But if you do have, that lockdown dude, hopefully Terry Arnold's the guy, then it makes it easier. You only have to go out, put up 14 points as opposed to 25, so I like it. My next question is, this is going to be one of my last questions, Joey. So a lot of players in sports, they can get into a rhythm of just like being in the zone where you just don't miss. It's your perfect game. Now, your Tostitos Fiesta Bowl, I feel like that's one of the closer ones where you were in the zone. Was there any other game from high school, Pee-wee, college, pro, wherever, where you were like, I cannot miss a single throw? This is insane what I'm doing right now.
Best game is the Lions?
Best game with the Lions. It's interesting. There were a couple games. I remember I had a couple 4-touchdown games with the Lions. Remember when Charles Rogers first showed up?
Yeah.
There was a game in New York against the Giants that I think I may have had a perfect passer rating or, pretty close. But the thing is, like, I truly never felt wholly comfortable in the NFL. Like, I never really felt like, the years in Detroit, I had 4 head coaches and, 4.25 years before I got traded, right? Go to Miami and Saban leaves after that year, and then go to Atlanta and, Petrino picks up and leaves. And so, like, I spent most of my time in like this state of kind of flux, which does not bode well for comfort and finding yourself in a zone. There were a couple games in Miami where I think I threw for 400, but you just kind of get in the flow of a game where you just have to throw it. Ironically, one of the times where I felt best in the NFL was the game that I came back to Detroit with Miami, the Thanksgiving game.
Yep.
It was it started a little bit slow, and I don't think we threw a pass in the fourth quarter because we were up by 14 or so. But there was a stretch in there between second and third quarter, and then probably into the start of the fourth where I felt pretty dang good. They were few and far between. I remember having a conversation with Matt Millen. Actually, it was after my last game in Detroit. We played Pittsburgh. I think I played pretty well. And he's like, you know what? That's what I expected, or that's what I thought that every game would be. I was like, well, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. I'm trying to think. Every once in a while, I'll remind my kids, like, don't forget that your dad did beat Tom Brady, Yeah. So, but what I don't tell them is that, I think I only threw for about 175 that game, and Jason Taylor had a pick six and a couple sack fumbles. So, I don't think any time in the NFL really, there were no times in the NFL where I truly felt wholly comfortable from start to finish. There were a couple flashes, but that's why I decided to hang him up after 7 years instead of grind it out. Like, I knew it was time.
That just goes to show how tough it is, man. A lot of quarterbacks out there, not even just quarterbacks, any position. It's like if you aren't playing your best consecutively, your chances are going downhill. And
yep. You are true. People don't understand the level of competition, right? How truly talented every single person on an NFL roster is. That's my favorite, is when I hear if somebody say, oh yeah, well, so-and-so sucks. Well, actually, like, they're truly one of the best people in the world at what they do. Now, compared to this guy over here, yeah, he's not quite as good, but I'd like to see maybe why don't we go out in the backyard and you can throw an 18-yard comeback with a guy in your face, and I'll have him throw an 18-yard comeback and see who does it better.
For sure. I got one more final topic I want to bring up with some nostalgia. What do you think about the return of the new black jerseys of the black?
Okay. You want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw him at first. I was like, oh man, that's great. I like it. That looks pretty good. And then I saw somebody say, but the helmets look like Carolina. I can't unsee the fact that now it's like, it's the Carolina Panthers. So
I thought so too. Yeah.
You thought they looked like
Carolina? They resemble the Panthers, or if you know of Duke's college football team,
I haven't seen their uniforms that look like that. But no, I like the blue face masks. I like the changes that they made. But it's funny because people look at the NFL uniforms and say, "Oh man, what a huge change! This is incredible." I look at it and say, "Well, they're not wearing like pink or carbon or or volt or chrome. So like, what's the big deal? Is there is a camouflage print or like wings on the shoulder?" Because Oregon changes their uniforms all the time and does some crazy. One time they actually dressed like their uniforms were like color coded like the actual duck. So any NFL uniform change is still just a little bit of a change for me.
Yeah, honestly, I just like that they just went for something, a splash, and didn't just kind of make small little tweaks. And they, didn't just stick with the gray, essentially. They went, back to the black and kind of spiced it up a bit. But yeah, that the Panthers correlation, I can see it and I cannot see it, because there's some times where I'll quick look and I'll be like, you know what, you're right. And then there's sometimes where I'll just study the hell out of it and I'm like, no. That's different. That's different. That's different. We're not the Panthers.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And you know what? Sometimes, hey, I love that Detroit's breaking out of the box, right? Yeah. You did things a certain way for the last 65 years, and now you know what? It's time to get outside the box. Let's shake it up a little bit.
Yeah, and a big part of it too, I believe, is that they want to honor the Dan Campbell era when he was a player with the Lions and the black jerseys were still around. That's why they wore it in the draft room. I don't know if you saw that, but Yeah, it could definitely work if they make it their own. The Lions like to make these things their own, the blueberries and whatnot. So we'll see.
Look, if you win, everybody's going to love them. If you lose, then they're bad luck. That's just kind of how it works.
That's how it works.
Well, Joey, thank you once again for hopping on. If you want to one more time reiterate the Harrington Family Foundation, what you got going on over there, feel free. And if you got any other, things you want to mention, talk about, feel free as well.
Oh no, I appreciate you giving me an opportunity just to get the word out. I mean, that's the biggest thing is, it's always, it never feels good to, try and hit up people for money, but to understand that we're doing this for students who, I mean, honestly, they're rock stars. They need someone to open a door. They need someone to help lift them up and say, I believe in you. And so to be able to use something that, not only is pretty cool, which is a 1 of 7 pair of Jordans, and is pretty valuable to be able to raise money for some amazing students. I think that's worth promoting. So go check it out, harringtonfamilyfoundation.org. I've got it posted all over my Twitter page, but buy a couple raffle tickets and help support some amazing students.
Hell yeah. Love it. Love it. Well, once again, thank you, Joey, and you are always more than welcome to come back on at any time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
See you. Well, Joey Harrington, that was awesome. We got some cool little stories from him. If you guys are just tuning in now, I know our shows are hour long, so you might be trying to catch the back half, but we just had an awesome interview with Joey Harrington, asked him some cool questions about the jersey, new black jerseys, about his draft experience, and just kind of what some other little things. But Julius, I don't know if you want to. We still got a few more minutes before we're wrapping up here. If you want to talk a little draft here. I know he's always ready.
I mean, Brad Holmes, he went for it. I mean, if we think about what he did, right? He traded for Carlton Davis. He signed Amik Robertson. He brought back Mosley. He drafted, doubled down back-to-back corners in the first and second round of this year's draft. That's 4 upgrades at DB. And you add that on with Brian Branch and Kendall Vildor and the safety room we have, it's all come together. He's going for it. We're going for a Super Bowl, bro. That's what this draft told me, is that Brad Holmes knows our weaknesses, knows why we ended up losing a few games and why we ended up giving up. So wide receiver ones had their way with us. That never ended last year, all the way up until, and Brandon Ayuk, they had their way with us. So this is a way to try to counteract that. The rare only weakness the Lions had.
Honestly, if we had, it's kind of cherry picking, kind of silly to say maybe, but if we had Terron Arnold and Rakestraw on our team during that 49ers game, probably, honestly, unless those two guys are, bust, if they're, first round caliber, if one of them just ends up being a first round caliber player, doesn't matter if it's, Arnold or Rakestraw, but nonetheless, yes, Brad Holmes, this was a draft of where he was going for. We pretty much stuck to all defense or, I guess, offensive line. We added a defensive tackle, Wingo from LSU, who we traded up to get. We added that gigantic beast of a giant. I'm drawing a blank on these names, but I'll pull them up in a minute.
His name is Mainu?
Yeah, Mainu.
Giovanni Mainu from University of British Columbia.
British Columbia. Gotta touch up on my Canadian football.
And then Siani Baki from Utah, running back safety.
What did you think about that one? Because I saw a whole lot. Ian Rappaport reported they designated him as a running back on the selection. And then the Lions, when they tweeted out, they said, no, he's a safety. So do you think, Julius, we're going to be seeing like a little kind of Jamal Agnew-esque type player here?
You remember he was a running back. Well, he was a safety and he was a running back. He in Campbell's first year. I can't recall his name, but they used him pretty extensively. He didn't do much, but I think that Siani Baki is, and I think he could be a better running back than a safety, of course, because our safety room is already set. and he played safety decent, especially box safety, but he didn't in coverage. It was, he's not going to blow the world away or take Kirby Joseph's spot or whatever. So I can definitely see him being a core special teamer. And who knows, a couple I don't want to say injuries about anybody, but maybe this guy is a Monrod St. Brown type running back in the 4th round that we traded up for. I mean,
I like to think of him as a dual depth piece, as in our guy Dan Campbell loves depth. And what better than being able to play one position than two? So this dude can help out at running back because we have seen our guys get injured and go down. Love the cup, Julius. And we've seen our safeties kind of get beat up. And we did, we lost CJ Garner-Johnson this year and Tracy Walker. So there could be a role for it. But yes, I think he's going to be a special teamer. And I do think there is a path where if he shows his explosiveness, can catch the ball, can run, I think we might design some plays or get him in on, some actual offensive plays, not where he's just, we have Montgomery injured, Gibbs injured, and Craig Reynolds is beat up. So we have to have, Vike come in and get a couple touches. I think he might, by the end of the year, have one, maybe 2 plays or something designed for him, depending on what he's been doing.
And then the guard that they got in was a 6th round or 7th, Chris Mahogany. Evidently, people think he could be the steal of the draft class, like a future starter on the offensive line, which if you look at it that way, Brad Holmes essentially is starting to refuel the offensive line to keep it successful for the foreseeable future. So that Decker retires or we got some injuries, Ragnar retires, we got some guys to come in and make it whole again. Are you there, Adam?
It might cut out again. Come on.
You're breaking up pretty bad. Gonna let you cool out there for a second. Well, Adam, while you're frozen, I'm gonna talk to you because I also want to talk about Giovanni Mainu. This dude is 6'8", 350 pounds. Evidently, he was going to be the #1 overall pick in a Canadian Football League if he didn't get drafted or no NFL teams. Evidently, NFL teams have been showing interest with Giovanni Mainu for a couple seasons now. And the Lions, even though he played left tackle his whole career, the Lions told him after the draft that he's going to be playing right tackle. So, I mean, I love the pick. I have no problems with it. Mekhi Wingo, also we traded up for him. He's a great pass rushing D tackle. He's going to immediately challenge Benito Jones. And, Adam decided to join. Maybe not. Wingo from LSU. He had some dominant games. Oh, you're back, Adam.
There we go. Goodness.
Wingo had some dominant games in the SEC.
You talking Wingo?
Yeah, I'm talking Wingo now. I was just about to get into the other draft picks.
Yeah, man, Wingo, I feel like him just being able to learn from Reader and Aleem, honestly, because Aleem's starting to become like a veteran. I think this will help out this guy a lot. Wingo's a huge dude, played the SEC, like you're saying, at LSU. So it's not like he's, in one of these North Dakota states where the competition's, a little bit smaller. He was playing with the big boys. So Mekhi Wingo also started his career at Missouri. So he's kind of spent his whole time in the SEC. We did move up to get him. So honestly, I'm seeing that Trey Wingo and Lance Zierlein had him at the 95th and 90th best prospect. So a top 100 type dude, according to a couple of draft experts. So that's always nice.
Yeah, Ozarwerky, he's on call with this Wingo pick, if you ask me. Levi Ozarwerky, Benito. I don't even think Benito. Did we re-sign Benito Jones? I'm not sure. But I'm thinking of Broderick Martin, actually. Broderick Martin and Levi Ozarwerky are on notice with the Mekhi Wingo pick.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Levi, especially, I think this could be his last year, or you could just kind of follow the rotation. But nonetheless, got some more competition on defensive tackle, and then we beefed up the offensive line as well. You never know with Decker, who's been bouncing around with injuries. Glasgow's older, Zietler's a little older, so it's good to we didn't just get one, we got two. We got offensive tackle and a guard, so it's good. Build through the trenches into the future, essentially. Yes, Benito Jones, the Dolphin. That's right. We lost freaking everyone, it seems, for the Dolphins.
Yeah, but I'm still kind of analyzing the undrafted free agents we picked up. Most of them I wasn't familiar with. So I'm sure next show we're gonna get into a little deeper.
Yeah,
into
for sure. We'll have a better draft breakdown with better connection, hopefully. So I'm sure my connection's hopping all around here. But one thing I will say, man. So everyone is in the consensus of like, oh no, Brad Holmes is so good, just let him draft whoever. But there were still some, people on Twitter that were like, oh, well, I can still be judgmental. And it's like, yeah, you can. But I tried wording this tweet. I could not word it right, so I have to just speak it on the pod. And it's, if you saw Pat Mahomes doing a funky workout, throwing the ball a weird way, doing something just you didn't 100% agree with, would you be like, I don't know if that's going to work for Pat Mahomes? No, you'd be like, wow, how is this going to work for Pat Mahomes? And Brad Holmes is in that exact same category where he is just so good at what he does. You truly cannot make a judgment on it until you see it play out. You can guess and you can maybe assume, but man, oh man, this guy is on a whole new level of, he could take a kicker and I'll see what happens. This dude might be able to nail 80 yarders. Who knows?
It's true. I mean, Brad Holmes, I know that the pundits and experts don't like it, but the Lions fan base trusts him. We bought into him and Dan Campbell's grit, their mantra, the culture they're built. The fan base has bought into it fully. I trust Brad Holmes. I trust him 50-50 with draft picks. And I trust him even more, damn near whole with first-round draft picks, because he hasn't missed really. You could say Jack Campbell. You could say J-Mo. Both of those are questionable still to be made. And so as far as first and second round picks, I'm pretty confident in Brad Holmes. And as far as late round picks, if he can produce Amon-Ra St. Brown, he can produce another Amon-Ra St. Brown. I guarantee you that. And one of them might be Giovanni Mainu or Giovanni Vacchi or Makai Wingo.
Man, if one of any of our draft picks just becomes like a superstar, like an Amon-Ra type diamond rough, or even, a lean type, or Kirby, honestly.
Just like Joey was saying, if Terrion Arnold or Enos Rakestraw or them both become a number one corner, lockdown, shutdown cornerback, the Lions are going to have a Super Bowl dynasty. That's the one thing they don't have.
And it is just, man, it is so nice knowing you have a GM and head coach that's just competent of all this, because almost every NFL team has, not a perfect GM where it's he's done good, but you never know.
Not Quinn. Yeah.
Exactly. There's billions, man. Oh, billions. Overall, the Lions, we saw another Warren Sharp came out and said, I don't know what his analytics were, how he did it, but he said by the analytics, the Lions had the best value draft out of any team, which was awesome to see. Even though we did trade up for a bunch of guys, we still got killer value making those trades up. So it worked. So hopefully we can transition on the field.
You got a letter grade for the draft?
A+.
I'm right there with you, bro.
Yes, sir, man. All right. And as always, if you guys are just popping in, Joey Harrington was on a little earlier. Rewind that sucker, see what we talked about. It was a good interview. We talked some cool stuff, got some draft insight from him and how it all went down. It was actually a pretty cool story. So go check that out. Also check out the Harrington Family Foundation. He's doing a lot of cool stuff over there. You can get $25 raffle tickets for some sweet off-white Jordan sneakers if you're a sneakerhead. And as always, check out the boys. Check us out at Honolulu Blues _ on Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff. Spotify, give us a like, a subscribe. We appreciate all of that. And yeah, baby, as always, Jared Goff.